All right, one of the first concepts I teach to my clients is a concept called leverage. That's identifying a priority that has leverage. It means looking for the things that make everything else in the future easier or unnecessary. Imagine that. What would you do if you had one big thing every week that made your life easier? Or even, what if everything you touched became 1% better, 1% more effective, more efficient? I mean, instead of life feeling harder and harder on the road to success, life would start feeling easier and easier. So that's what you want to do. You want to accomplish a priority each week that makes it possible for you to tackle an even more important priority the following week so that you can reach your long-term goals quickly. All right, when you're doing it right, it makes your progress go exponential. You start accomplishing your 3-month goals in 1 month and your year-long goal in 3 months. Leverage is the reason why my clients can accomplish their long-term goals in far less time than they expected, even when they're juggling raising kids and managing multiple businesses or taking care of an elderly parent. It's as simple as leverage, as simple as that. But here's the thing. When I look at my clients' list of priorities, there's usually no leverage. There's a huge list of urgent and important tasks, but no leverage tasks. Let's get into some examples of leverage priorities so that you can start identifying leverage in your own life. Example number 1. Many of my clients struggle a lot with online marketing. It's just a constant grind to get people's attention and create trust online. So frustrated with the grind, one of my clients, Nell, decided to write a book as her leverage priority. Okay, why is that leveraged? Because a book creates high levels of awareness and it builds incredible trust and credibility. And she found that her online ads converted better and her sales numbers jumped immediately after publishing a book. So it was massively leveraged because it was something that she could do once and it would benefit all of her sales and all of her marketing activities down the line. Like most great leverage points though, it required her to zoom away from the daily grind and think about a better way to do it, a better path. Gang, writing a book is never going to be the result of just doing the next thing. You have to step away from all the things in order to decide to write a book. Okay, example number 2. My client Deirdre was losing sales because she couldn't stay on top of her email. She was literally missing emails where clients wanted to buy her product. And by the time she responded, they'd gone somewhere else. Now, most people would just say, oh, just work longer hours to keep on top of the email. But Deirdre asked a better question. She said, how can I make the process of answering my emails easier? So here's what she did. She created a separate email address just for sales inquiries. And then she had her assistant scan the inbox twice a day looking for possible sales inquiries. So she knocked down 2 birds with 1 stone. She relieved a lot of her anxiety about missing important emails, and she never missed a sales email again. Okay, example number 3. I had a client, Sonny, who was stuck in his job. He kept trying to get promoted and he was working around the clock, but he kept getting passed up for that promotion. Now, instead of continuing to push a square peg into the round hole, I asked Sonny, what would leverage look like here? Now, he said he wasn't certified in some of the newest software systems that were hot in his industry, and maybe that was why they weren't thinking of promoting him. Sonny took the time to get those certifications, and even though his current job didn't promote him, he got recruited by another firm that loved those credentials, and they paid him more than his current firm would have. So all of these folks used Gary Keller's leveraging question. Quote, what's the one thing that I can do that makes everything else in my life easier or unnecessary? Or my version of that question, which is, what action can I take this week that makes all of my future weeks easier? Now, pro tip, you can also take something unleveraged and make it leveraged. How do you do that? Okay, here's an example. My client Jessica had a weekly task to send out an email newsletter to her email list. Now she did it every single week and it just had to be done, but if she was being honest, she really hated doing it. So one week she decided to make it leveraged. In other words, she decided to find a way to make the same task easier in the future. She wrote down the instructions for doing the email newsletter into an SOP, or a standard operating procedure that any assistant could do on their own. So that assistant started doing 90% of the work and Jessica was just doing the final 10% of checking the newsletter and sending it out. This is a great example of how to take something unleveraged, like sending out an email newsletter every week, and making it leveraged by creating a process by which it's easier to send it out in the future. Here's another example of how to make something leveraged. Brian was spending quite a bit of time correcting the mistakes of his team members, and he kept telling himself that he needed to train this person better, but it was just becoming clear that the person wasn't the right fit for the role. So one week, instead of correcting this person's mistakes, he just bit the bullet and he let the person go. Now, of course, it's emotionally challenging for both parties, but it opened the door for Brian to find a person better suited to that position who wouldn't drain him of his time and energy every single week. That's another great example of taking an average task, like fixing someone else's mistakes, and adding leverage to it so that all future weeks are going to be easier. Now, leverage tasks are undoubtedly harder than the average task because they take more brain power, they take more emotional strength, often it's vague and you have to make it specific. That's why so few people do this kind of work. It's always easier in the present to just stick with the way things have always been done. But that's not the way to leverage your goals and leverage your tasks. And gang, please note that leverage has nothing to do with the length of time that it takes to do a task. That's a common misconception. People often look for the biggest, longest task and they assume, well, this one must be the most leveraged. No, it's not. When Brian let his team member go, it took maybe an hour total of his time. That's not much time at all, but it was highly leveraged. So leverage does not correspond with the task's length. Okay, that covers the basics of leverage, how to find it, how to create it if there is none. What I encourage you to do is identify your number one leverage priority for this week and this month, or even this year. We teach something called the life map to our clients. It's a visual representation of all the leverage priorities that you need to hit to get to your long-term dreams and goals. It's sort of like a ladder of priorities that gets you from where you're at today to where you want to be in a year from now. Each rung of that ladder needs to be supported by the rung below it. That's why we call it the leverage ladder. And it's one of the first things that I ask my Lifehack Tribe members to complete when they join our membership community. I ask them, where do you want to be in a year? Okay, what's the most leveraged thing you can do to get there? Where do you need to be 9 months from now, and 6 months from now, 3 months from now, 1 month from now, all the way down to what you need to do this week and what you need to do even today? You see where I'm going with this? Thinking this way means that your leverage priorities this week support where you need to be this month. And that supports your goal for the quarter, and that supports your goal for the year. You're building every step, moving into the next step. Now, this concept is so powerful because it gets you radically clear on each rung of the ladder that you need to climb to win your game. Now, again, I cover this concept extensively inside of our membership program. Go to lifehackmethod.com/tribe to get details on how to join that if it sounds interesting. Once you've leveraged your priority, I want you to endeavor to get it done by Tuesday each week. Why Tuesday? Well, because you're a busy person who needs to do more each week than just one thing, and you've probably got 100 things that you need to be doing this week. So what's key is to make time earlier in your week for your leverage priority, or it's not gonna get done. You really gotta carve out and defend about 4 hours early in your week. Now, with that victory behind you, you can then use the rest of the week to tackle all those other urgent but unimportant tasks that also have to get done. Gang, using this approach, you're gonna find that even if a week goes sideways on you, you'll end up feeling like you really moved your life forward in a big way.